Of course, my mom is not here, I'm just kidding. Okay, let me tell you who I am. I'm Lily Kurbata from Positive Technologies, and I'm an expert in network security. I've been working in this area for some 5 years, and joined with my colleagues, we focus our attention on telecom operators. Why? Because everybody uses internet, telecom operator services. The services provided by telecom operators are part and parcel of our life, and we don't imagine our life without it. We can't imagine it. We try to analyze network security materials we can find on internet related to mobile telecoms. We read all the documents, but the problem is that we hear a lot about the security of the interface, but not about the network providing the services. So we analyze the IP interface, management system, control of the device, and so on. And here are the 5 stories we have. Story number 1. How to get access to a base station network. Number 2 is vulnerabilities, attacks on GGSN, loss of money. Okay, so first, physical access to the base station network. What's a base station? That's a station your telephone needs to have around to receive a radio signal, and then using optic or copper or whatever network is used to channel the signal to the external world. The base stations have a very fine grid. In cities there are lots of structures, buildings, so base stations should be situated on nearly every high-rise, every multi-story building attic. Why do we need these base stations in a network? To have a coverage of a wide area. This is the coverage area. And to build an access network, as far as I read, 1/3 of all the costs seem to be necessary to make this network work. Because of course everybody is trying to save costs, to optimize costs. New technologies are being implemented. Now I don't even know all these devices that can be connected here. But here we see IP/MPLS network, which becomes a city-wide network. Why? Because that's my Ethernet with some small additions. And we see the devices, routers, but in any case, nobody can confuse by this, because this is something we know. So when there's such a huge city network, it's permitted to use it only to connect base stations to this, so they often connect legal entities to this network, including WAN channels and others. So, it's a convergent network when one transport infrastructure covers different services. In convergent networks, security is always an issue, because in one line there are different kinds of traffic passing. Standards like 2G, 3G, LTE, the voice from subscriber to base station and to controller goes encrypted, but we are not interested in this particular version. What happens to the controlling traffic? Because you have to fine-tune the base stations, controllers, everything has to be set, and all the devices in the network are controllable. The situation is different. Each data producer uses its own way. It can be standard or it can be customized. Some producers in some soft versions use the unsecure protocol. Insecure protocol, HTTP, Telnet, or MML, which is man-machine language, Telnet. It just describes the control of telecom equipment. Now, imagine that. Let's imagine that. There was a physical access. For instance, in 2006, I worked in an integrated company, renting a building somewhere, and we had to run back and forth to the attic to fix the base station. And I saw the base station, and it looked like it is on the picture in the right. It just had no RJ45 port. It looked different. So if I see it the way here in the picture, I won't even know how to fix it. In Ethernet network, the perpetrators can always get access to the data traffic, and if he intercepts the data traffic, he won't even have to decrypt anything. He will get an access to the device. And it really happens so, like we thought. Here you can see a screenshot. We were just watching, and here is the moment of initialization of the control session, when an admin came in with a password, and we even saw the first commands he gave. The situation seems stranger. You shouldn't do so, of course. Yep. And we have to say that there are lots of base stations. They are usually in the attics, and they are all connected to one IP segment. For instance, if once I gave a bottle of vodka to the janitor to get the keys to the attic, to get access to the base station, then I will also see other base stations in the same network. So a perpetrator can get access like this to hundreds of base stations. We haven't had real, actual attacks like this, but better prevent than have such attacks. There is another thing. This is what encodes and decodes, which encrypts and decrypts user data, and this device has a control module which is based on most commonly used operating systems like Windows or Linux. And they have services like RDP, SSH, MML. These systems should not be patched. But this is a hole in security. Moscow is a huge city. One telecom operator has 1,000 base stations, for instance. Yeah? So, for access to a base case station, you have to remember a problem that The system has to be changed. But if you have to record all of them in a file, it's nonsense. So often they change a password to some memorable but weak passwords, or sometimes default password is installed. And nobody knows how many base stations are protected by very weak passwords, common passwords. I was shocked for 2 days and 2 nights. I worked on this, and I didn't sleep till I found another vulnerability. Well, we can't call the previous ones a vulnerability. It was just sort of something wrong in the system. What is OSS? It's Operation Support Subsystem. It covers different elements in a network, some for the voice, some for what. And we managed to find a system which was in charge of radio access and for package network. In the past, we had the hardcore administrators who were ready to print it all. And now there is only what interface left of what can be downloaded. And again, WAP interface without vulnerabilities is difficult to conceive, and this is what happened this time. We found a vulnerability. They demonstrated this vulnerability not long ago, and in brief, there is a parser XML which has a little bit strange logic. In some parsers, there was a vulnerability detected, and all the producers who use these parsers in their products have been warned, but now they have already patched them, so you can see the logos. Sergey already showed the slide, right? These are examples of exploitation of this vulnerability. You see an XML file. And the system sends you back the shadow files in response with hash tracks. It works under Word. So it's now a big problem. If you go further, you understand. Using brute force hashes, that there'll be a new administrator when the guy comes to his office in the morning. You'll have to welcome him. So what does all this mean? It means that any telecom network is software which is full of vulnerabilities. And vulnerabilities are usually present in quite critical systems. So are there any procedures to work with patch vulnerabilities? Because vulnerabilities can be invisible. So you cannot just download some software, try to patch the vulnerabilities, and then try to sell your solution to the vendor. Here I informed the vendor, they did patch the vulnerability, but we can still show to you the system that was vulnerable. One can think about vulnerabilities for a long time, but probably it makes sense to think more about attacks on package services. What is package service? Packet service. Packet service is GPRS, which we all use. Here you see actually for mobile mobile files, and here you see mobility as GSM for mobility, and the second one is service data delivery for the user. So for me, the traffic goes from SGSN. And if I'm a corporate client, and if I have a service of access to local resources, then I can go into my home service, and if I'm an individual, I can go into the internet. Actually, it's situated here, like like it's shown. It's a trusted system of medium, and you see. Probably something is installed, but nothing much. And GRX is GPRS roaming exchange. This is a special service so that you could use packet services. The only difference from internet is that there are no hardcore resources, and maybe there are, you never know. So when I left for Turkey, I produced my cell phone from the pocket and forgot to turn off the roaming. My phone starts immediately getting access to internet. I don't know why this traffic is ongoing, but this is how it is. The telecom operator can always explain why international roaming is so expensive. The GRX as a network itself is based on several principles. Number one, it's open for all providers. It's all in IP with a guaranteed service quality, and it's secure because there is a band access to your outsiders. Look here, each of telecom operator, and here we see a special router to which all of them are connected. And if the router is very badly set, you can get access to GRX network as well. And all operators worldwide are connected to GRS. And if somebody makes an error in DGSN settings, it can compromise. The system. There are lots of GSN systems in internet. You can look for the countries where you see them. You can see them in internet, but you shouldn't be even able to see that. If you look for GTP protocol, that's the most important protocol for mobile operators. There are three main versions. It's completely universal, multi-purpose, and it covers all the needs. Now it has a second version, and it has some drawbacks. It cannot identify, it does not support the the traffic, and if there is no encoding, it means that all standard IP attacks can go through. So you can activate connection to have some traffic ongoing to nullify the account or whatever. We did so. Here you see how the perpetrator addresses a GSM. The context is activated. And again, the situation doesn't look too nice because of misconfiguration or whatever. And some bad things may happen. How can this be treated? Probably GRX networks, which will be soon renamed, because GPRS is now not very much of interest. It will be IP roaming. Number one, you would need to have a firewall. And it's important that they can design DNS and GTP protocols, and you should correctly make the settings. Here it should be using 3 GGP. But unfortunately, the control of the settings is not made, even though it could help. At some moments, probably, there is no time to care for security the way we understand it in IT. And again, if you look through 50 hardwares like this, you'll maybe compromise one. So this is how it looks like. Oh, an even more interesting story about how you lose money. This is a true story. It's about one VoIP service provider, mainly Russian and international. A provider lets the client go wherever the client wants. The client gets the money, everybody is happy. This is soft switch class the client used, and this is a flexible program commutator. It performs the routers function. It records the number of calls to produce invoices. Operators call this fraud. One of the clients noticed some unhealthy traffic towards Cuba. You should be happy for this because Cuba is an expensive destination. So first, the telecom operator thought, oh, that's big money. But just in case, they called the client. The client said, I never called Cuba. But in one day, 1.5 million rubles were sort of lost in one day. The client says that the client sees that the traffic did not come from the client's IP address. And the first idea is that somebody of provider's engineers managed to modify the key, add something to it, and then developed a fraudulent scheme, analyzing logs and so on. All the activities were made via web interface. And the bosses did not mind. And the default administrators text, which is usually deleted, was used, and we verified, and we saw that the default administrator was changed. And considering that the system has been operated for quite a number of years, everybody decided to participate in this investigation. Nobody wanted to be the scapegoat for the situation. And you know what we learned? We learned about any possible works and luckily for our investigators, the dead packets of updating were left on one of servers, and they have default admin with default keyword password. So it means that the default admin started appearing again, which means that somebody found at the right moment the right victim and the right tools, and having quite good serious knowledge of how to change the picture. And it's not an outsider, it's an insider. The insider found the thing is that the guy made money only during 24 million, but in any case, even with dumping, it could be a very good amount of money. The question is still open: who created this dev packet? But next question is, who understood what it means? Who did this? Because from the update till the incident there were 2 months, and there was a default password even. And the guy was looking for a larger number of providers with similar vulnerabilities. And you never know how many other providers actually got scammed. And the question is, in this situation, do you need an audit of the because the audit showed us that there is a user with weak passwords in the system. And here is another story about vast platform vulnerabilities. What is a vast platform? Value-added services. This isn't just an SMS, this isn't a short message. So to attract new ones, and the marketing specialists think, and very often they come across a good idea of self-service portal. You don't have to go to an office to get connected to a site. And here you go. And I'm satisfied as well as they are satisfied by simplifying it. But there's one error. when creating a knowledge of how to avoid and considering that now the services are integrated with payment systems, with vulnerability, it makes it possible to use these payment systems as well for the bad guys to earn some money. There are security companies our company recruits for such investigations. Let me tell you about one of them. The attacker, for a while, tried to get connected to self-service portal of one of Telecom operator. He went into client profile. Some of them were interesting, some were interesting. And looking at the web server's log, we found that it wasn't even a scattered attack. When the browser accepted the IP address, we saw the number of files which connected the crypts. And the security check of the application itself was carried out, by the way. And we actually stated the fact that in some mobile applications of this operator, there was no mechanism implemented at all. And again, that's the scheme the perpetrators tried to use. They got a good example of logins and passwords to get connected to the sluice. So it's the most interesting thing that when analyzing the security of web applications, our experts found a way to find, provided they had more time or whatever, they could have they could get subscribed to some services and they could have made even more money for a long time period. We perfectly realize that now they are there are 5 stories how they can be harmed, like I showed, but there are more than 5, of course, many more than 5. When I'm talking about harming a telecom operator, nobody is going to refuse mobile phone or internet. So attacking an operator is like it seems simple. We don't want to risk our communications now. And lately, and optimistically, I can say that for the past 3, 4, or 5 years, we see a new trend when a group of researchers, for instance, very much enhance security in this area. More orders, more projects, more auditors of the scheme, of vulnerabilities, we get more and more information. Vulnerability scanners are detected, and all of this taken together make it possible to make the operator's network more secure and also the life of